guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk about parenting and some of the issues that we face as parents. As you can see, I have my fabulous Y'all Need Jesus t-shirt on today. Again, whenever my merch, I get to do that, it definitely will be something on my merch because it is something I say a lot. Anyway, so back to parenting. There's kind of a joke that, people will say like, oh, kids don't come with manuals, or there's not a parenting, there's not a parenting book out there. And the comeback to that is there's literally thousands of books on parenting. That's fair. But even with that being said, parenting is an individual sport. And I say this from the bottom of my heart because every one of my children is different. Every one of my children, I have to parent differently. What works for one absolutely will not work for the others. We do have ground rules in our home. You don't get to eye roll me or your father. You will speak respectfully to others as well as your parents. You will have chores to do. Some chores you get paid for. Some chores it's because you live in a house that you are provided with every basic necessity that you need. So therefore, you're going to kind of contribute back to the family by doing chores. Now, but my goal in life is to raise healthy, sound women who can go out and take care of themselves without the help of anyone, and be productive members of society and be very well-grounded women in society. So this really isn't about me. This isn't really about my children in particular. It is. This comes from someone who I know and is kind of going through some struggles with one of their kids. And again, I'm going to go back to you have to parent each child differently. So the situation is this person's child is kind of had some challenges in the past with behavioral issues. Not a bad kid at all. But just sometimes the lack of better judgment is a little more forthcoming than the lack of, or good judgment. So the kid makes really poor decisions quite frequently, and in my opinion, has kind of been coddled to not really be held accountable for some of these decisions. And I think that the parent is kind of, okay, I made some mistakes in the past and I'm going to, nip this in the bud right now. And I commend that because it's not easy parenting and going, kind of having like how you're doing things and then all of a sudden have to realize that as a parent, this isn't working. Whatever I'm doing isn't working, so now I've got to go a different way. I've got to go a different route. I commend parents that do that instead of just, doubling down and buckling in and being like, this is my way or the highway. Some things you have to be like that on, but you do have to look at each individual child as a individual human being. So this child, again, for many years has made some really poor decisions. This child has had a rough past where a stepfather did abuse the child mentally, verbally, and some physical. So I think a lot of the kind of coddling of the child has been, we don't want to push the child too far because we feel bad that this child has been through these experiences. Fair enough, and I agree with that. I think that there are some things that, you do. I'm sorry, there is a little tiny fly that is flying around me and it keeps like right here. You do have to take those things into consideration, I think, when you are disciplining a child. However, totally not disciplining a child is a whole other ballgame because now you're going to have more challenges with said child because they're going to realize, oh, I can use this as a scapegoat to get out of anything. I can just, kind of cry these crocodile tears and be like, oh, it's because of this environment that I was in that's causing me to be this way now. That can be true up to a point. But again, it is your job as a parent and caregivers who are involved in this child's life to step forward and say, okay, we understand that you're having challenges over here. However, does not give you an excuse or a right to behave in a certain manner. So this child has been caught stealing. Evidence is there. Evidence had kind of been there in the past, but not really. It was kind of like, is this happening? Is this not happening? But then some evidence came forward that in fact the child was in fact stealing. So the people that were involved, you know, I think with good intentions, they were like, okay, well, we're going to have said child write us an apology letter. Okay. We're going to make said child do chores around the house. Okay. And I said, I'd call the cops. And this did not go over well. And before I could finish why I would call the cops, the person was very upset, understandably, and hung up on me. So I'm going to say the message here. Here's why I would call the cops. This child has, again, been spoken to. This child has been loved. This child has been given many opportunities to make right or wrong decisions. When this child is around me personally, this child does not pull any of these things that this child pulls with other people. Number one being because I don't mess around. My rules are my rules. My rules have been my rules even when I was a teen mom. Again, not a great mom. I messed up royally with my oldest daughter, and I apologize for that. But there are fundamentally things that I laid down even at 17 years old that were no-goes. These are no deals, no-brainers. You do not pass go. You do not get out of jail free card. In my opinion, this child is at a point of you do not get out of jail free card. This child is at a point that they need to be scared poopless. To the point of I've even said they need to go into a scared straight program because you are now dealing with an individual who flat does not care about the other person's trust. If the said child cared about the trust of others, they wouldn't have done this to begin with. This was clearly a case of, it's available to me. I'm going to use what I have and I'm going to steal from people. So there was a conscious decision to do so. And I will stand by that at that point, you are beyond writing letters of an apology. Because again, if the child was really worried about your trust, they wouldn't have done it to begin with. And then the topic did come up of, you know, possibly spanking the child. I don't agree with always spanking children. I think there is a time and place for popping a kid on the butt. I'm a big firm believer in a dope smack in the back of the head. You can ask my children and my niece. She will tell you I can get about 3 heads in one slap. And that normally is a good enough, like, hey, you know, knock it off. So again, this child, the other person that's involved in this child's life, was trying to scare the child and said, you know, I'm basically going to beat you. Person was not going to beat the child. It was just everybody is at their wit's end on how to deal with this kid. And knowing that it's a good kid, knowing that the kid has a lot of potential, but this kid also has a lot of potential to end up being behind bars. And it breaks my heart to say that, but you have to sometimes take the emotion out of being a parent. You have to take the emotion out of being a grandparent. You have to take the emotion out of that this is a family member that I love. You have to sometimes just look at it as, how would I treat this person if they were just an individual on the street? And if your response is radically different, then you know you've got a challenge. And the challenge probably lies within you. Children have to be disciplined. Again, you don't have to beat them. So this kid, good kid, for the most part, really is a good kid, good heart, but just making some piss poor decisions. And so the family obviously is involved. Emotions are high, and somewhere it turned into being, I don't know, it turned into kind of a nightmare. The goal of kind of punishing the child and getting the child back on track was lost somewhere. And people were really upset about my statement of call the cops. And I will stand behind that. I would rather a child at 13, this child's 13 now, be scared shitless by the police or by authority, in the sense of not like police brutality, but like, hey, this is a reality. If you continue down this path, you are going to end up in the back of a cop car. You are going to end up in juvenile hall and or prison, because that's where this kid's headed. Hands down, that is where this child is headed. And to put blinders on and think that an apology letter or chores are going to fundamentally or radically change this child's thought process, unfortunately, is flawed. And I know that their family members are going to be watching this, and I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for this. But hear me out. We have to discipline our children. You don't have to beat them. You can have dialogue with your children. You can have parameters, and you can have boundaries set. But if the child keeps going past the boundaries and then falling into this woe is me status, it's because I had these problems in the past. At 13, if this is already kind of cultivating in this child's head, then later in life, that's exactly what this child is going to do. This child will not be a productive member of society. This child will cultivate this mentality that, oh, because I had this past, this allows me to be a victim for the rest of my life. And now, since I'm a victim, I'm going to now make you a victim of what I'm doing. Wrong, 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 wrong. We have all had past. We have all had something that has happened in our life that is not good. And it doesn't necessarily have to be abuse. It can be you had parents that weren't understanding. You had parents who were so busy with work and focused on their jobs that they lost focus of you. They weren't bad parents. They thought they were doing what they were supposed to do, but you were kind of getting lost in the minutia of life. It happens. But when your attention is called to it as a parent, as caregivers, you have to act. And if you don't act, then what are you doing? You are definitely putting a person out in society who is going to wreak havoc in people's lives. And I know a lot of you are probably saying, whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot just because, a small amount of stealing. This was not a small amount of stealing. This is something that's been happening here and there. And again, like I said, it was not we can pinpoint it on this child. Well, then when it kind of came down that, yeah, it was pinpointed on this child, the child kind of got away with it. So now the mom is trying to say, you know what? I've done my best. I didn't want to be the hard ass parent. I wanted to be more of that kind of, I don't want to say friend parent because that was never a friend parent, but just more in that line of, you do what you're supposed to do. Everything's copacetic. I'm going to parent you, but don't do stupid things. And if you do stupid things, I'm going to call your attention to it. So the attention has been called many times. Many times this child has been brought to me because I seem to be the only one that can get through to this kid. But again, I get through to this kid because I don't play into the bullshit. I don't play into I've had a past. You know what? Everybody's had a past. And at 13 years old, you already know right from wrong. So if you are choosing to do wrong, then you are culpable for your actions. And therefore, your culpability should lead you to, you need to have the cops called on you. Because you're too old to have your ass busted. Simple as that. So I did tell the mom I would support her in whatever she decided to do. And if she decided to put the child in juvenile for the weekend, I would support that because maybe that's what it was going to take. Because again, this child has not had to have really any harsh punishments to say your actions and what you're doing are not acceptable. So basically, here's the deal, and here's what I want to say to parents out there. Yes, there are thousands upon thousands of parenting books out there. If you aren't inclined to read books, you need to find the advice of someone who's had a lot of parents, or a lot of parents. You need to find the advice of someone who's had a lot of children and has been successful in raising those children, and adapt maybe some of the things that they do for your home. Because again, it's not a one-size-fits-all type parenting. And however, there should be ground rules. There should be things that are laid down that are concrete that, are non-negotiables. One being respect. You respect me, I respect you. Certain tones are not allowed in my home. Definitely no eye rolling. You can, if you are being punished, you can state your case, just like if you were in a court of law. I am the judge, I am the jury. Now, if you present your case and I think that you've presented your case well, I'm probably going to lessen your punishment. However, if you come at me in some type of nasty or derogatory or overly emotional way, I'm not, it's just going to be my way or the highway. Very rarely do I pull what I call the mom card. And I parent my children daily, as we all should. But I really get irritated when I have to pull what I call the mom card. And the mom card is when you have been given ground rules. You have been set out on a path in life, and this is the path, and you really can't go off the path either way. You can look at the other sides of the path. You can ask about the other sides of the path, but you're not allowed to go off the path. And if you go off the path knowingly and willingly, then I get to pull mom card on you. And that's a whole set of consequences that are different, because then I'm going to explain to you again why certain rules are the way they are in our house, why we believe that the way we believe. And this is basically for your fundamental well-being. Because again, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is put people out in society that are functioning, that have manners, that can get a job, that when you die, you can hopefully rest your head and say, I did the best I possibly could do. So it's not easy being a parent, but it is a job that when you have kids, you chose to do. So yes, sometimes it takes tough love. And again, I will stand by, if your kid is acting out and you have done everything humanly possible within your family realm to teach, to speak to show a different lifestyle, and that child is continually and continuously bucking the system, then unfortunately or fortunately, you do have to get someone else involved. And sometimes, yes, that does mean calling higher authorities. And again, there's probably people out there that are not gonna like this video and they're gonna get angry, and that's all right. If there's a parent out there struggling, instead of cutting their legs out from underneath them, even if you don't agree with what they're doing, support them. And again, I will stand up. I'm not saying any type of abuse. I'm not saying any type of verbal, mental, physical abuse to the child. But if that parent says, you know what, I don't know what else to do to this kid to get their head on straight, so I'm gonna have to go more of a drastic route, then by all means, go the drastic route. As long as you are not physically or mentally harming that child, I'm for it. So, all right, guys, God bless, and we will see you next Friday. So, Free Advice Friday. Love you guys. God bless.